TreVeyon Henderson is looking to have a bounce back year. Miyan Williams is healthy, and there are three other running backs who are trying to have a lot of playing time for the Buckeyes in 2023. How does Tony Alford handle the talent in his room? We discuss that today on Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Wednesday, August 9th in the year 2023, and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. All the action goes down at FanDuel.com/locked-on. During today's episodes, we will go over some predictions for different statistical categories on the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about Harrison, Miyan Williams, TreVeyon Henderson, and all the talented skill position players on Ohio State's offense. But first, I mentioned Henderson, I mentioned Miyan Williams, because those two running back, those two players are a couple guys that are going to be needed for the offense to be all they can be in 2023. I am a believer that those are the top two backs at Ohio State, and unless something crazy happens or my opinion is changed based off things that happen on the field, those are the guys the Buckeyes need to ride in the backfield for Ohio State's offense. But then there are three other guys that are on the team that play running back: Evan Pryor, Dallin Hayden, and Chip Trayanum. Trayanum was a running back at Arizona State, transferred to Ohio State, played linebacker, transferred to play linebacker. During his time last year, moved back to running back end. Lo and behold, he is still in the running back room. Evan Pryor a year ago got hurt during the spring game, missed all the season, but he has looked to be healthy, and he is someone that could be a big piece of the pie in some capacity for Ohio State in 2023. And then there's Dallin Hayden, a second-year player, a guy who was thrust into a bigger role last year due to injury and played phenomenal football a year ago. You got five guys. All five guys, if they went to other schools, would probably start. I mean, they're Power 5 starters, all five of them at running back. So it's not like we're saying like one guy would not start at Indiana, but the other guy would. One guy would go to Bowling Green and be a backup, and another guy would just be terrorizing the opponents. Like, we're not talking about that. All five of these running backs, they are guys that would start at other Power 5 schools. I mean, it's a luxury to have that in Ohio State's running back room. And when you think about just your Ohio State fandom, your lifetime, what has the running back room been like? Probably been one guy, maybe two. Do you generally have five guys that could play? No, you don't. And just in my time covering the Buckeyes here for the Locked On Podcast Network, this is my fourth season covering the team. My first year was 2020. You have an incoming transfer running back in Trey Sermon. You got Master Teague, and I'm sitting here like, okay, Teague isn't better, but he is the veteran. The Buckeyes ran with him, and even looking up some stats preparing for later in the show, I was like, oh, Master Teague played better at that point in the season during that year than I thought he did. But that was the first year. And then you keep on going 2021, 2022. The running back room right now, if everybody's healthy, is easily the best since I've covered the team. And I think in Ryan Day's tenure since 2017, and even the other coaches that are there that have been coaching for quite a long time, they will say this is the most talent that they have had at any running back room at any school that they have coached at. Which is why when it comes to handling this room, it's very important to figure out who is the best and ride with them. I'll make this statement all season if I have to, or until something changes my mind based off things my two eyeballs see on that football field. Miyan Williams and TreVeyon Henderson are the guys. I think there's a scenario where TreVeyon Henderson does get to start week one against Indiana. I'm not saying he's going to have the most rushing yards for the Buckeyes this season, but I do see a scenario where he is your starter based on how the coaches view him and want to utilize him in this offense. But that's where things get a little interesting. When it comes to Chip Trayanum, He is a little bit heftier, I think 230 or 235. 235 pounds is where he weighs. But he can also, I mean, he broke for a 70-yard run in the spring game. They have him do a little returning. So it's like, where do you find him? Is he going to be more of a Mitch Rossi role, H-back role, not as heavy as Mitch Rossi, but he's going to be a good blocker, maybe be a little more versatile? Do you find a package for Chip Trayanum? Then you got two guys in Evan Pryor and Dallin Hayden that are saying, look, I don't care. You ain't got to find a special H-back package for me. Let me in that backfield. Let me tote that rock and let me cook. That's what they're trying to do. And if I'm them, that's what I'm trying to do as well. However, it's easier said than done. For Tony Alford, Ryan Day, new OC, Brian Hartline, and the rest of the offensive coaches, my own advice would be this, or this is what I would say to you. Find out who the top two guys are and work with them. Figure out if there's a guy that needs to start. I hear about this all the time in basketball. There are guys that maybe need to be bench players, maybe a sixth or seventh man, but based on how they respond versus when they start versus when they come off the bench, they might start because another guy on the team can come off the bench and be kind of a spark plug immediate instant impact when he's on the field. So you have that guy come in there off the bench. Think about this as well. I think back to 2012, I think it was 2011, 2012, Oklahoma City Thunder, going back a little bit, about 11 years ago. What do we find? James Harden was not a starter on that team, wasn't one of the best five players, was the best two guard on the team, but he did not start sixth man. He ultimately finished games. Why? Because one, he could come off the bench and be an instant impact guy, but also two, they knew late in games, he is going to be with your finishing unit, your final five, if you want to use that form of alliteration. It's a little interesting when it comes to running backs because you don't normally have a guy that is your best, but is not maybe the most productive guy out there, but can come off the bench and be an instant spark plug. So if TreVeyon Henderson responds better when starting, start him. Like if it's that easy, you're going to get more out of TreVeyon Henderson starting him versus him coming off the bench. Start him. It's okay. Like that's not something that I would normally say, but I think in this situation it is okay. But also, Miyan Williams is great, man. Like he's a great Buckeye running back. I'm not trying to say like he's one of the upper tier type of guys over his tenure, but he's been really good for the Buckeyes. And I do think he can be somebody that comes off the bench, but you have to find what works, who your top two guys are, and roll with them. In the top two guys in Henderson and Williams, they don't have the same type of skill set, which complements each other very well. If you want to play three and you want to say, hey, maybe the top two guys, one goes down, who is next? That's where things get tricky. Because Dallin Hayden looked like he beefed up a little bit. And he's trying to sturdy his frame and have a more rock-solid frame to withstand the physical hits that he's going to take on a college football Saturday afternoon or evening. That's one thing. Evan Pryor, do you want to have him come in after being out a year ago? Chip Trayanum, where do you go? Figure out your top two guys and then figure out if you want to have a third back in rotation. I'm really kind of on the back end of this. I'm really someone that does not like to say you need to have three running backs on the field or in rotation, but I could easily see a scenario where the Ohio State Buckeyes go that route because of the talent in this room. How does Tony Alford handle this room? Figure out who your top two guys are. Let them cook. If Chip Trayanum has a package, let him work. But also figure out if you want to use a three running back set. Chip Trayanum's package, probably more of an offset guy, maybe a heavier package. That's great. But be very, very picky and strategic about how you go about handling this room. Coming up next, I teased it maybe a week ago. It's finally time to predict some offensive stats for your Ohio State Buckeyes in 2023. Going to go over a lot of stuff coming up your way. Marvin Harrison Jr., Cal McCord, Devin Brown, and others will be discussed. You don't want to miss what's coming at you next year on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by Birddogs. It's that time of year where it's hot outside for a hot second, and then it cools off for a few days, warms back up, it then cools off again. And in your wardrobe, in your closet, you're trying to find something that allows you to be cool and comfortable when the temperatures rise and allows you to be comfortable when it gets a little bit cooler outside. That's where Birddogs comes in. Birddogs has the exact thing for you to feel comfortable all year round. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. Birddogs also uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege or enter promo code LockedOnCollege for a free white tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege or use that friendly promo code LockedOnCollege for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. Thanks for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every single day. Now is a great time. Stop what you're doing. Don't stop driving if you're on the road, but take some time when you get a moment to subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes so you don't miss a beat. Apple, Spotify, the Odyssey app, it does not matter. Locked On Buckeyes is easy for you to access. If you're a listener on Spotify or Apple, leave a 5-star review and a rating. If you're watching us on the YouTube, subscribe to the Locked On Buckeyes YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you are notified every time a new video goes live, and smash the like button on this video. Locked On Buckeyes is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we have been teasing, and I've been looking forward to the next portion of the show where we get to somewhat discuss and predict what's going to happen on the football field numerically. Part of it's going to be with the quarterbacks, and at the time of this recording, there has not been an announcement about who the starting quarterback will be for your Ohio State Buckeyes, which is why when we get to the quarterback conversation, I am not going to come out here and say, well, it's this guy or that guy and hone in and tie into one quarterback. I'm not going to do that. Kind of collectively, if this guy starts or if this guy starts, what is the number for them? Going to go leading rusher, over-under numbers, all that good stuff. But let's start with over-under. Well, the starting quarterback for Ohio State throw for over 4,250 passing yards. The first thought is yes. But when you look at how a Ryan Day coached offense works and the numbers that have gone there, there has only been there have been two quarterbacks that have thrown for over 4,000 yards during their career, during a single season at Ohio State. Dwayne Haskins and C.J. Stroud. Even a year ago, Stroud didn't do it. In 13 games, threw for 3,600 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, 6 INTs. So the first thought is, yes, he's going to do it. However, if the number were at 4,000, I might say yes, based off of talent at receiver and how I think Brian Hartline is going to use and potentially he's going to call the plays for Ohio State this season. But my first thought is if it's over under 4,250, my number is no. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't believe you're getting a guy in McCord or Devin Brown that is going to be the best thrower in the country. Like, I'm not saying that. I don't want to go that far. I can see a guy maybe getting 3,900 to 4,100 passing yards, but 4,250, I am going with the under. Passing touchdowns. That number, over-under number, is set at 42.5. Now, you may say that's pretty hefty. Maybe it should be at 38.5. But when you think about it, when it goes to Ryan Day quarterbacks and the guys that can throw the ball consistently in the late, I'm taking JT Barrett out of it, and I'm not counting Justin Fields' 2020 season where he only played 8 games. When there's guys that can throw the football and they play 13 games, I mean, they're elite throwers. Dwayne Haskins, 50 touchdowns. Justin Fields, 41 touchdowns in 2019. Stroud had 44 in 2021 and 41 TDs a year ago. So the throwers of the football consistently, you're thinking 41 or above. 42.5, once again, I am going under. That is not me saying that I don't believe that they're going to be a really good thrower of the football. I just think when it comes to the talent in the running back room and how I think Ryan Day and Brian Hartline want to have a balanced offense, I think that lowers the amount of throws and touchdown passes a guy can make. However, think about this. The Buckeyes play 15 games this year, 12 regular season, a 13th being the Big Ten championship game, and then also 2 playoff games. That number's possible. I'm just going under right now based off my gut thought with this conversation. Rushing yards, over under 1,500 rushing yards for whoever the leading rusher is. That's a no. Like, I could probably say 1,300, but when I think about 1,500 yards and that happening under Ryan Day's tenure, there's only been one running back that has had over 1,500 rushing yards in a single season. That was J.K. Dobbins when he had 2,000 rushing yards in 2019. And so when you think about the numbers and think about the production, TreVeyon Henderson might be the leading rusher this year for Ohio State. Freshman year, he had 1,248. And that was a phenomenal year, 15 touchdowns. That was a great year for him. But 1,500 with the running backs that are here and with the amount of talent and how I think they'll use 2, maybe 3 backs in the season, that's a big ask. And I just don't think that's going to happen. If he emerges and has an end of the season performance like Trey Sermon had in 2020 or Ezekiel Elliott had in 2014, where Elliott, I think he went back-to-back years with 1,800 rushing yards. Like, that was just stupid good. I don't see that happening with any of the guys in this room. It could happen. I just don't see it happening this year. Over under 16.5 rushing touchdowns. A year ago, Miyan Williams had 14. 2 years ago, TreVeyon Henderson had 15 rushing touchdowns. I'm going to lower that number because that seems a little hefty. Let's go 13.5 based off how I originally were 16.5. And I was like, that doesn't, these are my numbers. I can change them even on the fly. 13.5, I would say yes. 16.5, I would say no. So 13.5 rushing touchdowns on the season. Whoever the leading guy is in this category, I am going yes for them. Will Ohio State have 2 1,000-yard rushers? That I'm going yes. Will Ohio State have 2 1,000-yard receivers? 2 guys that have over 1,000 yards receiving. I am also going yes. The minimum game the Buckeyes are going to play is 13. Max 15. Unless Brian Hartline uses 4 or 5 receivers, 5 or 6 receivers, I don't see a world where Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. are both under 1,000 receiving yards. I think both are over. I think both are over 1,000 receiving yards, and I'm not sure if there's a world where the offense flows like you think, and one guy has over 1,000 and another does not. I don't think so. I would have a hard time thinking that is going to be the way things go for the Buckeyes in 2023. I got a few more stuff coming. These are more predictions. Who's going to be the leading rusher for the Buckeyes? Who is going to be leader in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns? Will there be a kick return, a punt return for the Buckeyes in the fall? A lot of good stuff coming your way. I'll even throw some quarterback stuff coming up at you as well, because even though we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be, we can definitely predict what the starting quarterback, who they might be, who might start the most games, and things like that for the Buckeyes in the fall. We got more predictions coming for offensive players coming at you next here on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long, because right now when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can also use your bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sports book. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. We got more predictions coming your way right here at Locked On Buckeyes on a Wednesday. I am so excited for football season. It's right around the corner. You got week 0 games. the Buckeyes take the field for the first time during week 1 of the upcoming season. Many of you may be like me and will be looking forward to going to high school football games in the fall, and that just gets you excited. There are some people local to me that'll be going to high school scrimmages this weekend. I will not be, but I understand if you do. Football's great, football's fun, and we love every part of it. Part of football is predictions, and we made some earlier in the show as far as over-unders. Well, the starting quarterback, those over or under 4,250 passing yards. I went no. Will the starting quarterback have over 42.5 passing touchdowns? Also no. Will whoever the starting running back is, whoever the leading running back is in rushing yards, will they have over 1,500 rushing yards in the season? I said no. Rushing touchdowns, 13.5. I went yes. I went yes for the Buckeyes having 2 1,000-yard rushers and 2 1,000-yard receivers. Yes, in both categories. But to keep going on with the theme of the day, and that is predictions, leading rusher, who is it going to be? And this is something that, as much as I say what I think and how I think things have gone, I also understand how the coaches have utilized the top 2 backs in this room. And if everything goes like I think it will, which is not how I think it should go, I'll just say that right there. I do believe that TreVeyon and Henderson will be the leading rusher for Ohio State in the fall. Mainly because, and this is something I heard from Stephen Means on from Cleveland.com, on Buckeye Talk, the podcast, and him, Nathan Baird, and I believe it's Andrew Gillis is the new voice on that show. Stephen Means reiterated and discussed that the times that Henderson and Williams are both healthy a year ago, TreVeyon and Henderson was the guy that was the starter in those games, which goes to why I think he'll be the leading rusher. I would wait to make a statement. I know last year I made a statement about how the offense was more productive and with Miyan Williams in the backfield. I'm not going to make that statement yet until the season starts, and we get 4 or 5, 6 weeks in, and then I start making statements based on observations that we have seen, that I've witnessed during the football season. But I do think the leading rusher will be TreVeyon Henderson, but I'll be curious to see if the offense is more productive under Miyan Williams in the fall. Who will be the leader in receiving yards? I think the leader in receiving yards will be Marvin Harrison Jr. I think the leader in receptions will be Emeka Egbuka. A year ago, I do believe these numbers, where we at? Marvin Harrison Jr. had 77 catches. Emeka Egbuka had 74. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 1,263 receiving yards. Emeka Egbuka had 1,151. I think for the season and how I think things are going to go, and they're going to move Marv around a lot, I think Marv is going to find ways to get loose and cook defenses out of the slot or in motion or different things like that, where I still think I got to write this down really quickly so I don't forget my notes. And so middle of the season, someone's not coming back and saying, Jay, you made this statement. Jay, you said this. And I'm like, I don't have a record of that, but it's right here in front of me, and it's right here on the podcast. It's not going anywhere. Leader in receiving yards, I do think it's going to be Marv. Receptions, I do think it's going to be Emeka Egbuka. Receiving touchdowns, I do think that was going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. I think at the end of the season, you're going to find a scenario where both of these guys, Egbuka and Harrison Jr., they're going to be neck and neck. I mean, 1,200 for one guy a year ago in receiving yards, 1,100 for the other. 77 receptions, 74 for the other. In receiving touchdowns, 14 from Marv a year ago. I believe it's really close. Egbuka had no less than 10. Can't read my handwriting. It's pretty bad when that happens. So I do think that they're going to be neck and neck. And this also could be a reason why Harrison Jr. is not up for maybe the Heisman. Maybe he wins all Big Ten, all American, Biletnikoff. But for the Heisman, maybe that is something. Or maybe he doesn't win the Biletnikoff because he is sharing the field with someone else who is one of the best wide receivers in the entire country. When it comes to kick returns and punt returns, I think it's going to be yes for both. I think that when it comes to the guys that are out there, the talent that is there, no matter if it's a freshman and Brandon Ennis, or if it's Marvin Harrison Jr. or Egbuka, or maybe you put Xavier Johnson back there, or Evan Pryor or Chip Trainum, whoever it is, I do believe the punt return's more likely than the kick return. Kick return rules allow you to just call fair catch in different spots of the field, which that don't make sense to me. Punt returns, I think, are going to be more likely. I think the Buckeyes defense will force numerous punts, which will raise the amount of chances they have to return a punt. But I do think it's a yes for a punt return and a kick return, and I cannot think about the last time. I've been hearing a lot about Buckeye fans wanting more from the return game. I can't remember the last time that Buckeye fans or people were satisfied with the return game for Ohio State. That time and that day might come at some point during this season. Love Buckeye football. Prediction season is here. We're going to go over some predictions next week for the defensive side of the ball. Leader in tackles, leader in sacks, leader in INTs, fumble recoveries. Who will have the most defensive touchdowns? We'll touch on all of those a week from today. Also later this week, a little update and continuation of learning about the Buckeyes during preseason camp, fall camp, whatever it is. It's the final preparation for the Buckeyes football season, which starts on September 2nd. We got a lot to learn from the team. Stay tapped in and locked on Buckeyes so you don't miss anything going on with your Ohio State football team. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes here on a hump day. I'll see you next time.